Hello everyone, how are you doing today? My name is Harry Nakai. I'm your friend and the host for this show, and I welcome you on Honeywalia shows. Today I would like to welcome Mr. Tushar Bhutani on our show. He's one of the top 5 realtors of Remax Excellence. Welcome to our show, Mr. Tushar.
Thank you, Harry.
So let's talk about closing. When you're talking about from the seller's and buyer's point of view, what are the requirements do you think that is needed when you are closing the property?
So, Harry, when the seller is ready to list his or her house, what we basically would need at that point is a copy of a land title. So we'll start off with what the requirements are in order to list the place, because I do come across this a lot wherein people usually would not even know how to kind of go about listing the place.
Yeah.
So this, we'll be talking about the requirements, the documents that you would need, that I would be of course needing, or any realtor for that matter, once we are about to list your place. So to start off, we need of course a copy of the land title. We need to see what names are on the land title and what name we have to do the contract on.
Okay.
And then of course there's a listing contract that is done between my brokerage and the seller.
Okay.
And then of course I am one of their agents that I'm representing the seller and kind of just making sure that I make them go through the deal as smoothly as possible.
Absolutely.
So basically as I said, land title is one of the documents we need to begin with, listing contract. And there is another thing that I've come across a lot in the past, or whenever I go and meet a lot of my seller clients, there's a document called Real Property Report, which we will be talking about.
Too, yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
we'll be talking about that more in detail. But Real Property Report is like a document which we need on closing. A lot of times sellers are not even aware as to what that document is for and why do we need one in place. So that document basically talks about it's a land survey. It's one-page document which shows your lot. It shows the exterior improvements that you've got on your lot, and it also shows the building as to what kind of setback you've got on the sides and the back. So this document is of course very, very important. Every time you close on a resale property, buyers would need that document. More than buyers, it's of course lawyers, because they're representing their own clients. So when buyers would buy the property, their lawyer would of course come back to us and say, well, where's the Real Property Report? Because they need to see what their clients are getting into.
Absolutely.
And if there's any exterior improvements on the property for which they would need to have a permit.
So viewers, as I want to tell you this thing, that Mr. Tushar has a huge experience, a lot of experience in his in the real estate market, as well as he's one of the top 5 realtors with the Remax Excellence for like every month. This month also you are one of the top.
Yes, thank
which
you.
is which is really great. So Tusharji, when you are talking about the Real Property Report, you are talking about from the buyer side or from the seller side?
Right now, Harry, I would say I'm talking from the seller's side, because they're the ones who would end up paying for Real Property Report. There's a fee. There's a cost that sellers would need to be aware of as to what all is involved. Because a lot of times, as I said, when I go and do a listing presentation with my clients, I sit down with them and they're not even aware as to what that RPR is. And as I said, why do we need one in place? What's the use of it, right?
Absolutely.
So,
RPR is important from both the points. And now we are talking about like the requirements. When you said there are particular requirements to close the deal, which is one of them is a real property report. What is the other thing which is required when we are closing the property?
So RPR is of course one thing. What we need when of course you have a buyer who put an offer on your property, and of course at time of removing conditions, when we transfer your paperwork over to the lawyers, at that point we need to have that in place. But in terms of, so let's go back when we have to list a property. So as I said, we need a listing agreement in place, which of course me or my office staff would be signing with sellers in person, wherein we talk about all the terms, the clauses that are involved. There has to be a few months of contract that we get into, wherein we will be marketing, exposing your property out in the marketplace, and giving viewers some information as to what your property has to offer. So land title, of course, we talked about it, listing agreement, and we need to set up a day and time wherein what we do is we come out and do measurements, do professional photography, and then of course do some virtual tours as well.
Yes.
So that's the basic requirement what seller needs to be aware of, that when they have to get going, say for example, I've done CMA, I've done all the assessment, we've gone back and forth, we've spoken to the sellers a few times, and when they give me a call and say, Tushar, I'm ready to go, let's go ahead. So that's what I really wanted to talk about in this episode, is the fact that, what documents would my office staff would need in order to prepare your listing documents, and what you really need to know about stuff that you need to have in place when it comes to selling your property.
And when we talk about, you just mentioned about the measurement. Like, do you have to give the measurement report to the seller, and is there a professional whom you hire, or how does that work also?
Yeah, so as per 2018, there was a new rule that was passed out that
by
came
RECA,
out,
I think, right?
By RECA,
Yeah,
Real
yeah.
Estate Council of Alberta, wherein every property we put out in the market has to be measured as per a particular standard. It's called Residential Measurement Standard.
Okay.
So we can do it ourselves if you feel confident enough, and as long as you're following the principles in place, you can do it yourself, 100%. But most of the times, and talking about me, I would hire a third-party company who would come out and do some measurements, do a photography, and then of course they're liable to make sure that those measurements are correct. Because in case if in the future somebody was to come after you and say, well, these measurements weren't correct, at least you've got a backup. You've got a third-party company who have their own insurance in place, and you have them to kind of cover you for that.
Absolutely. Even I have come across few more things, like builders who are selling the house. They have a different measurement when the other person is measuring the property. So is there a difference, and does the difference come in that also?
You're right, Harry. There is a difference for sure, and I've seen that difference quite a bit more on duplexes than on single-family homes. So builder, when a builder goes about measuring their square footage on their home, they would actually take outside to outside, and a lot of times they would also include the staircase and any of the rooms where you can't walk in, like say for example laundry room. You just open the door, you've got a laundry, you can't add that space into the square feet because it's not usable space. So now the residential measurement standard that all realtors in the city of Edmonton would follow has some rules in place, has some principles in place, wherein you can be counting from outside to outside. It has to be from inside of the wall to the inside of the wall, and also there's a lot of open to above sections, staircase, laundry rooms that should not be included in the usable square feet of the home.
So what is the square feet when you count like the square feet of the house? What all is included and what is not included in that?
So usually any usable space which includes like your kitchen, your living room, your bonus room, your master bedrooms, bathrooms is included too. What is not included, as I said before, is the open to above, if you've got that section in the house, and a staircase, because that's, you use them of course on daily basis when you're going up and down, but again, that as per the rules that we've got in place right now with the RMS that we talked about, it's not to be counted in the living square feet of the house.
As well as the garage and basement?
Yes, so anything that's below grade, most of the cases basement is of course below grade, so that's not countable again. So square feet of the house should include, and everything that's inside the house has to be above grade. Anything that's below grade is additional square feet, but it does not come into the square feet of the house. And of course garage is not included as well.
So Tushar has given us a lot of good information about the square feet, like how to calculate the square feet, as well as Tushar, when we are talking about the documentation, there is one more thing which has come up quite frequently, which is the dower's right and dower's agreement or document which has to be signed, which is like sometimes husband and wife are not living together, or they are separated or divorced or something like that, and there is a dower agreement which has to be in the place. What is the dower agreement first of all, and how does that work, and the lawyer involvement in the dower agreement?
So dower rights is a very, very crucial document we need to be aware of when we are selling a property. This document basically talks about your spouse or your common law or anybody who's in the property with you, like your spouse and of course your common law partner. They have the rights on your property, which means if their name is not on the land title with you, and if you have stayed in the property with your partner, you have dower rights in that house. So if your partner, who is the title owner of that property, wants to sell the place, he or she cannot until they have your authorization on it. So a lot of times, yes, when I go and do listing presentations, that's one question I would always ask my clients, is the fact that how many people do you have on land title? Are you married? Have you lived into this house with your partner? If you have, there's a separate document we need to have it on file, which we say it's dower right agreement, and the way it works is you have to take that document over to a registry, and then you basically have to sign that, you and your partner, and you have to sign it in front of the Commissioner of Oath. You just can't be signing it yourself and then sending me a copy of it, because there has to be a stamp of Commissioner of Oath at the registry, and then once we get that document, we send that over to the lawyer, and of course we keep one in the file for our office use.
So you mean to say, like, if let's say the house is on the husband's name or the wife's name, but they have been living together in the same property, they need to have a dower agreement in place?
Only if there's only one out of those two, only one has a registered name on the title.
Oh, yeah.
If you have both names on the land title, then dowry right does not apply, because then to sell the place or to do any change on the land title, you would need to get authorization from both the parties.
Yeah.
But in case, as I said, if there's only one title owner on the land title, and if it's the husband or wife, and if the other partner is not on the land title, then yes, she has, or he or she would have dowry rights on it.
So when we are talking about from the seller's point of view, what's the role of a lawyer once we are closing the deal?
So lawyer would of course come into picture a little later into the deal.
Okay.
So as soon as we put an offer in, there are a lot of conditions in the contract that we have to first fulfill before it goes firm. As soon as the deal is firm, then yes, my office would send the closing documents over to the lawyer from the selling side, wherein we get instructions from the brokerage as to the agreements, the addendums, the amendments, all that stuff that we have actually done between the buyer and the seller. We need to communicate, we need to hand that over to the lawyer.
Okay.
And lawyer would actually just go through those documents in detail, and they would also need to check, well, if there are any owing property taxes on it. Lawyer would go through in detail, look at the land title and see, well, okay, what do I have on the land title which should not be even there?
Okay.
Because buyer's lawyer would of course go through the land title, and if there's any lien or if there's any caveat which should not be there in the first place, we have to fix that.
Okay.
So seller's lawyer would of course look at all the legal side and whatever is involved in terms of closing the deal. And as I said, property taxes, your bank payout, they will need to get in touch with your lien holder, like whosoever you have your bank loan from. They would have to get in touch with them, get an exact payout amount, and they have to prepare a statement of adjustment which talks about what funds would be going back to the lender, what the penalty amount would be if there's any penalty. Penalties, of course, we'll talk about more in detail as we go on. But there are those things in the balance in the statement of adjustments that they would have to work on, and of course communicate that back to the seller and let them know.
So when you're talking about the lawyer, it has to be both the parties has to have a different lawyer. It cannot be the same lawyer for both of them, right?
You can. There are some exceptions that lenders would make, wherein you're allowed to use the same lawyer. When it comes to buying and selling, but there are certain lenders, yes, Harry, wherein they would say specifically that no, you cannot be using the same legal firm to be able to represent your sites. I can't name those banks, of course, but I have come across a few in the past who have had that requirement.
Okay.
But in the past, again, we've done some deals wherein the lawyer was the same for buyer and seller. So not that it can happen, it can. It all depends as to who your lender is, who you're going through, and all that stuff. Yeah.
So, friends, there are so many things which knowledgeable things which Tushar is giving us the details about. So definitely, if you have any questions, give a call to Tushar. His number is mentioned below. As well as Tushar, now we are talking about from the buyer's point of view. Sellers, we have already discussed about it. So let's talk about the buyer's point of view. What are the documents required when it is the process of buying?
Right. So when a buyer is working with a realtor, we of course sign a buyer's brokerage agreement with them, which basically means that we will be representing them in the deal.
Okay.
Right. And we would be looking after their interests to make sure that they are represented in the whole process. And if there's any concerns on the closing day, before closing, any conflict in the contract, terms, agreements, all that additional stuff that's in the contract, we take care of all that stuff. But documents would be, of course, the buyer's brokerage agreement is one thing we do, and then of course we help the buyers with drafting the purchase contract, putting terms, putting the conditions and all that stuff into it. And once we waive those conditions, once your financing is through, once you've done the property inspection, I know we'll be talking about that stuff as well in detail. And once all the conditions have been satisfied on the purchase contract, typically we would guide you on what the next steps would be, how to basically have your lawyer come into the picture at that point of time, and what all stuff they would need from the buyers in order to, because of course when you waive conditions, you would have to book an appointment with your lawyer, go there, sign the documents in person, and you have to do that, of course, a week or 10 days before the closing date.
Absolutely. Now coming back to the same question which we have discussed, or we are going to start actually, the home inspection. How important is the home inspection? What are the requirements of the home inspection? is there a license required for the home inspection who is doing an inspection for you? Because home inspection is a very important thing, especially nowadays when people are buying new houses or old houses, everybody's going through a home inspection. So would like to put some light on that too.
Yeah, Harry, it's very, very important to do a home inspection, especially on a resale home. Well, these days we do it even on brand new homes, because we've seen some cases in the past wherein buyers did not have a great experience when it comes to some home builders that were out there who were not following the codes. So home inspection, be it either new homes or resale home, it's very, very important. And I would like to mention here that, you know, that's one thing you seriously should be working on as soon as your financing is through and you think your numbers are working fine, you'll be getting an approval in a day or two. Start scheduling an inspection with a licensed property inspector. So property inspectors, of course, they are independent contractors, but they have to be licensed through a certain authority. So you need to get somebody who's aware of what's going on, what the codes are on the new home building side.
Absolutely.
And of course they should be knowing about the ins and outs of the whole in home construction industry. So
when we talk about inspector, does he has to check everything in detail from the basement to the roof and everything, or does the home inspection give just a general report?
He has to know. It's quite detailed. I've seen home inspections. When we go and attend home inspections, we have to be there as a realtor. So it usually would last between 2.5 hours to about 4 hours, depending on how big the property is,
okay,
and if the basement is finished or not, right? And if we have any concerns or not in the property. But they go a lot more in detail. They look into the foundation cracks from the outside. They take a tour of it just to make sure they don't see anything unusual which should be a concern. They look into the inside basement. If the basement is finished, they have to see if the basement had permits or not.
Okay.
Right? They would go and check the appliances. If they have any appliances in the basement or, of course, on the main floor, they would look into the hot water tank in the mechanical room, furnace. And all these things, they have a certain lifetime. So we need to make sure that they're being serviced regularly, and if not, how much life is left in them.
Okay.
Now, I get this question a lot, Harry, from my buyers, from my clients, wherein they say, well, okay, has the inspection passed? Well, there's no such thing as inspection passed or failed. It's all about getting the facts, getting the information, because inspector can only disclose the facts, can only disclose the findings, what he has come across when he did the inspection at the house, but he can't say if it's passed or failed.
But does it
That's
say
for
on
you
the,
to decide.
sorry to cut you,
No.
does it say on the contract like subject to inspection or something? Like it is there always, right?
Every purchase contract, every offer that we would draft for our clients, we would have that condition in place. Now it's up to you if you really want to get a home inspection done or not. Being a realtor, we would always advise to get it done, because you don't want to get into something. It's a big decision. It's a lot of money that you're putting in, right? So you want to make sure you're getting into something which would be long lasting, and you won't have any concerns moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And once everything is done and everything is passed, like we'll talk about the mortgage, talk about the home inspection, everything is done. What's your role after that? Once everything is good to go,
Right.
and then you are before handling the keys to the customer.
That's right.
What's your role at that time?
So we are involved right from day one when we start looking at properties to, of course, the day the keys are released. Now, once conditions are waived, of course, a lot of the work has to be done by the lawyers, because they would get into place and start drafting all these agreements, getting the closing instructions signed from the buyer. Our job is still to make sure that anything which was on the amendment or on the addendum from the seller's side or from the buyer's side on the contract, which formed a part of the contract, we have to make sure that they're being fulfilled. And if there's a walkthrough, a lot of times we do a walkthrough as well, especially on a brand new place. So benefit of going with a brand new place is the fact that you do get to be in the property about 5-6 days before possession and do a pre-occupancy walkthrough with the builder or with the builder rep, wherein you go through room by room, look at all the areas of the house to make sure you don't have any concerns, there's no scratches on the walls, appliances are fine, and they would of course walk you through outside as well just to make sure the vinyl, the exterior, the stone, everything is in place.
That's nice. So basically the thing is like the builder also let you go through, and then you go in and then you check everything with them.
That's right.
And then once everything is done, and on the final day they hand over the keys to.
Yes. So I would typically meet my clients on site on the closing day to hand over the keys to them, and at that point, of course, that's where it usually ends. The whole process of a month and a half, 2 months, and then after that, of course, we are always there for our clients if there's anything they would need, if they're not able to get hold of a builder, or if there's any questions they would have for me, I'm always available, right, for them. A lot of times, even on a resale transaction, we put in some clauses in the contract which talks about doing a pre-occupancy walkthrough a day before closing. A lot of time resale homes, people don't allow for that, but it all depends as to how proactive you are. So as long as you put that term in place, you should be able to make use of it.
So as you know, Tusharji is at top 5 among top 5 realtors. So this is a personal question I want to ask you, because once the closing is done, everything is good to go, and
That's right.
buyer is happy, he gets the house. What is the after sale service you do once the sale is done?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Eddie.
Yeah.
As I said, we stay involved with our clients. We have to be in touch with them. Our job doesn't end as soon as they get the keys. If they have any concerns, or if they have seen something which is not right in the property, even at that point, because we have been in touch with the seller or the seller's agent, or vice versa, if I'm on the selling side, we make sure that we get in touch with the concerned authority and concerned party, and then get some answers back to our clients if they need it. But we always keep checking. So all the clients, we of course get so busy in our lives that we kind of just move on, and we get involved in our work and stuff. But I do make an effort to reach back to my clients every few months, just to make sure they're doing fine, and if they have any concerns, they can let me know. So that's typically what we would do.
Yes.
Because if you're buying a new home, the first year is covered by the builder itself for the warranty, and then the second, fifth, 5 year and 10 years, of course, the extended warranty that's in place by different companies, third-party companies. So on a new home, I haven't seen people getting back to me with concerns. Even on resale, not really. They would possibly get in touch with their home inspector if they've had some concerns which they weren't made aware of in the beginning. But a lot of times, our job is to make sure when we write up the contract till the day we get the key release, everything is being looked after, and there's no surprises in the end.
If you have any query about buying and selling of your property, you can contact Mr. Tushar Bhutani. His details are mentioned below in our show. So Mr. Tushar is very busy, but he's always available for your services. Please give a call to Tushar, and definitely his number is mentioned below. He would love to talk to you, give you the guidance of buying a house. He's a very supportive realtor and a very renowned realtor in the city. So Tusharji, any last message you want to give to our viewers?
Well, just ask the right questions. If you're out in the market, either buying or selling, just make sure you understand the whole process before diving into anything. Because this is real estate. When you buy or sell, this is one of the most important decisions you make ever in your life.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you're aware of what you're getting into, or what kind of agreements are in place, what you need to know about selling a place, as we talked about the RPR, DAR rights, and all the other documents that one really needs to have in place if you're selling, or even on the buying side, what documents should you be aware of. So ask the right questions. Professionals, we have time and again said that we are there for a reason. We do this day in and out. So ask us, and we'll be more than happy to give you all the answers. And we get paid.
Absolutely.
We get paid for passing on the information.
Absolutely.
So why not? We'll love to give the information out to our buyers and sellers so they can make an informed decision.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining, and you can subscribe to our channel, and definitely give call to Mr. Tushar, and we'll be bringing him back on next Friday as well as Sunday. Thank you.